Good afternoon. This is the Thursday, April 18, 2019 meeting of the Athens City Planning Commission. One member is absent. The other four are all present, so quorum has been established. There is no one in our live audience to administer an oath to, so we move to disposition of minutes from our last April 4th meeting. Are there any comments, changes, additions?
I would just say, I think Michelle Ostrike in the list of attendees, her last name is spelled K-E at the end instead of C-K. That's the only.
For Ostrike. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? All right. Is there a motion to accept the minutes? I'll make the motion to accept the minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And all in favor?
Aye.
And I abstain because I was not here. So let's see, communication cases. There are no cases today. Communications, Title 43.07 revisions. And I'm not familiar with the gentleman. Do you care to handle that, Paul?
Sure, I would be happy to.
Thank you.
So, good afternoon, Planning Commissioners. The draft document you have in your hand, I believe that you have for 4307. At a Planning Commission meeting several months ago, it was requested that myself and the Code Director kind of review sections relevant specifically to the permitting process, the approval process for co-locations and modifications on existing wireless facilities, wireless telecommunications facilities. As all four members are aware, we do, the current requirements are for those to be voted on by the Planning Commission, and they are typically rubber stamped, with, for lack of a better term, as they've been reviewed by the Code Director. And so as a matter of simplicity for and streamlining the process for applicants, it was recommended that we consider an option where those are approved, can be reviewed and approved directly by the Code Director without coming before the Planning Commission. And so what you're seeing in 4307A was my attempt to rewrite that first paragraph to clarify who has approval process or permissions with respect to both modifications, and it says the Code Enforcement Director is authorized to review, analyze, evaluate, and make decisions with respect to granting or not granting special use permits for co-locations and modifications to existing facilities, but it would still retain the Planning Commission having the authority to review the new facilities, new towers, because that is something we believe requires a heightened review or heightened scrutiny, especially public scrutiny. As you know, most of the modifications that we approved are pretty perfunctory. They're just changing some boxes down at the base, or they're changing out receivers and antennas. And to the layperson, including myself, you can't tell the difference from what they replaced, what they took out with what they replaced. And so let's make the process a little bit easier for them. I think we would expect at some point in the next month probably 2 of those type of presentations coming before the Planning Commission for modifications on Monticello and on North Blackburn, same towers that we're always getting on top of the parking garage. And so now whether this language is accurate or not, by all means, I'm not completely sure. I think it's pretty good. The requirement would be Planning Commission, because this is in Title 43 and not Title 23, Planning Commission really doesn't have to weigh in on this. If you think this is sufficient, we can send this up to City Council and ask them to deliberate and move on it or not. But regardless of what the Planning Commission recommends, because I don't think there's any requirement that the Planning Commission be involved, City Council could approve or deny with a simple majority.
And I think that as long as the Planning Commission is still involved with the special use permits or any changing of footprint, which I would assume that's kind of covered under special use permit.
Correct. Right.
I would see that this is reasonable from what I've read. Is there any comment from the Mr. Mayor?
Just one. I mean, first I have to qualify by saying I am not an engineer, so I can't imagine that any of the existing modifications that could come from and apply to this section would be to increase the height of a tower, because that would likely require some level of re-engineering of its base as well, if that's all factored in.
That is correct, yeah.
But how about the inverse? I guess is my question, is if for whatever strange reason someone came along and said, well, we need to or want to reduce the height of these, would that still come before this body or without any changes in the footprint? Because there would need to be if you're for some strange reason reducing its height.
In short order, I don't know. I can speak to increasing the height does not fit within the definition of a minor modification. So you have to either keep the height the same. Now, whether you can decrease based on this language, I'll have to double check that, and I don't mind doing so. And we can discuss it at the first meeting in April, or excuse me, first meeting in May.
Yeah, I don't want to slow down the process.
I think it's okay.
I don't know that any tower that has already been engineered and looking at the height and the effective range of those antennas for them to decide that they want to drop them down lower or shorten it. But just wanted to.
Yeah.
Would a company have to apply for a permit to take something down, as you would in construction?
Yep. Okay. Absolutely. Yeah. And they. There's a requirement in the code that if they abandon the site, that they must remove the tower, so that they can't just leave it standing and squat on it until technology demands that it be used again. Okay. So that would not change.
Chris?
I'm comfortable with
Nancy?
that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if all those things would fit under the special use permit then.
Yeah, no.
Especially like if you just mentioned if they were going to remove the tower completely and abandon the site.
Yeah, there's a section in code that would nothing else in this chapter is changing, at least as far with the exception of the recommendations I have in that 4307A. So everything else is already being addressed in there about how you abandon, how you make. They'd still be making changes and alterations based on this structure. The only thing that would change is that, I think the 7 or 8 years that we've had this on the books is that the Planning Commission would no longer be responsible for approving the modifications at existing facilities. And
okay.
I'm not sure how many of these we've reviewed as a Planning Commission, dozens at a minimum, maybe 50 or more. They've always been approved by the time they get to the Planning Commission because it's just very basic stuff that they're doing, cabinets and antennas.
Right. It seems to me that we've seen modifications on the same, multiple modifications to the same towers.
Yeah.
Monticello is a great example, and it's just changing out antennas, likely due to technological advances in the antennas themselves.
Correct.
So I'm fine with this piece of this change to the legislation.
Would you like to wait until Paul clarifies about the? No, we're good with this.
Yeah.
I'd like to note that there are two words in there that are important: co-locations and modifications to it, and that pretty much limits it to what our intention is, I think.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And I'm happy it's done. Thank you for doing it. I mean, you go through and I'm not an engineer either, and I look at it and think, oh my God, what am I voting on? Mm-hmm. And then I get through and I think, well, I've known some places in my own house that engineers have moved up, so. Mm-hmm. But I assume these are house-level specialists.
I would assume
no
so,
offense
too.
to any engineer out there.
Then do I understand that everyone is satisfied with the wording on this? Okay. And this is something we would recommend and pass on to City Council? Okay. Would someone like to make
I would like to move that we send the modifications to 4307 as shown on our handout to
Second.
council and approve for their approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so that's unanimous minus the one absentee. Thank you, Paul, for handling that. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, and I'll work with Patty to channel that up to City Council.
Okay. The report from the city planner, Mr. Loeb.
Nothing tremendous this morning or this afternoon. I'm just getting caught up. I was out at a conference the last several days out in California for the annual conference of the American Planning Association. I gave a brief summary of some of the things this morning to Mayor Patterson as well. A lot of conversations about scooters. Everybody's kind of dealing with that, just like the city of Athens is right now. Probably the best session I sat in on was a good conversation about off-campus housing in college communities around the country, and there was a representative from State College and Bloomington, Indiana, and Columbia, South Carolina, as well as an attorney who has worked on some of these things, and they talked about some new best practices and ways to address large-scale off-campus housing complexes that I think some of those strategies we're going to be looking at in more detail to try to incorporate into our comprehensive plan. Some of those had to do with approaches to get some of that housing as either set-asides for affordable housing for non-students. There's also conversations about how to require that those units be designed so that they can be converted into rental-type housing that would be more supportive to families should a university shrink, for example. And that there'd be housing. Typically, you might have 4 or 5 bedrooms with one kitchen and a small living room, and that's not generally what a family of 2 or 3 is going to be looking for. And so there's examples where they require that the units just be three bedrooms or less. But sometimes the bedrooms could be built large enough that you could put two or 3 tenants in one bedroom so that they can still try to maximize out. But so there's some of those strategies I'm going to be looking at in more detail. That was really rewarding, and it's always nice to be back in Athens after being out of town for a few days. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Loeb? Okay. Reporting from the DEF Director's Office, Mr. Allison. Hello.
How are we doing? Paul had kind of briefly talked about it. I anticipate a couple more tower applications coming in for modifications for antennas. I do have a meeting set up with 3 Cook Drive. They just weren't quite ready today, so I do have a meeting set up with them to hopefully get them on for the next meeting. Other than that, I don't think there's a whole lot of other stuff going on. Still no timetable on Menards yet. So we're just kind of waiting and seeing where they're at with that. So.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Mayor?
I do. Any updates on the marshals going into the Athens Mall complex?
No, other than they finally got their coming soon signs. Last I checked, they still hadn't even pulled any of their state permits that they were going to need yet. So I say they're still in the fairly early stages of when they're coming,
Okay.
if I had to guess.
Okay. Anything else? Question? Okay. There are, again, no citizens, residents in our live audience to address the Planning Commission. Announcements and other business? Okay. Our next meeting will be May 2nd, 2019, and with the work of the Athens Planning Commission completed today, this meeting stands adjourned.